always wondered where Suge Knight got this statement from.
Like I said, I had two of the toughest guys for him, and Reggie pulled them off of me. It didn't have to happen. I told him to send 5 guys from the club to there, and they never said nobody.
Ladies and gentlemen, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. helped orchestrate and set up Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight. He was working against Death Row. Let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always said, if you want to be one of the first people notified, hit the little bell notification right below this video, and we'll notify you when we drop some of this straight game. Ladies and gentlemen, I just came across something very important. I've always wondered when Suge Knight said that I had two of the toughest guys on Tupac, right? But Reggie pulled them off of him.
Like I said, I had two of the toughest guys for him, and Reggie pulled them off of me. It didn't have to happen. I told him to send 5 guys from the club to there, and they never said nobody.
I've always wondered where that statement came from. Why would Suge say that, right? Why would he say that? And I found the key piece of evidence of why he would say that. But it reveals more than just why he said that statement, right? It reveals so much more. And what it reveals is, well, first let me show you where it came from. And then I'm going to break down what you should understand from what this is. This is where the statement came from, where Suge Knight said, I had two of the toughest guys on Tupac in Vegas that night, but Reggie pulled them off of him. Listen to what Frank Alexander says right in front of Reggie the Rat Wright Jr.'s face and Suge Knight's face when Suge was trying to find out what happened. Listen.
Tupac and Alexander are alone in a crowd with no radio or weapon.
I think this needs to be let out. To me, that's the beginning of our downfall.
I don't own Right Way Security. I work for Reggie. I go, there should have been more security with us. I had already asked you and told you that we needed more bodyguards on Pac. I asked for more security. He goes, well, what happened to Michael Moore? He was with you that day. I said, he was called to go back over to 662. And every answer I gave Suge was answers that Reggie should have been giving Suge or Suge should have known. So then Suge says to me, he goes, no, I'm sorry, he says to Reggie, he goes, Reg, he goes, what's up? You know, what was the breakdown in security? And Reggie was like, well, and Al was a supervisor, and now here's the finger being pointed again.
Boom. You hear that? What does that reveal to you? Let me tell you what it reveals to me. First and foremost, Suge Knight asked asked Frank Alexander. He said, well, Frank, what happened to Michael Moore? He was with you earlier, right? Then Frank goes in to say, Michael Moore was pulled off of Tupac and called back to Club 662, right? We know for a fact that was Reggie, based on the fact that Tim Williams, who was Michael Moore's roommate, was in the room when Michael Moore got the call from Reggie asking him, or basically telling him, to come to Club 662. Listen.
When it comes to Michael Moore, was anybody calling his hotel room, trying to figure out his whereabouts, or see if he was coming to 662 or if he was still on Tupac? Was there any kind of information like that you were witness to?
There was a phone conversation, John, but I don't know exactly what the conversation was about. After Mike got off the phone, what I do remember was he was angry because he was told not to carry his gun, and he had got taken off for Tupac.
Okay, my follow-up to that question is, you said he was angry that he couldn't carry his gun and that he was taken off of Tupac. Is the reason he couldn't carry his gun because he was taken off Tupac? Like, were they going to make him go to the club or something, and that's where it was off limits to carry the gun?
He was mad because he had gotten taken off of Pac, and he was mad because he couldn't carry his weapon to the club.
Gotcha. Okay, so he would be unarmed at the club. How were you? Where the phone call took place? How were you a witness to it? If you don't mind explaining that.
Because I was his roommate. I was in the room with him.
Smash. So went in front of Suge at Suge's house, and Suge is basically, Frank Alexander is explaining to Suge what happened when Suge was wondering what went on. And Suge basically says, well, where was Michael Moore? He was with you earlier. And he said Michael Moore was called back to the club. Notice when Frank Alexander shift to Reggie to explain what happened, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. defers and says that, well, Al Giddens was a supervisor. No, that's not gonna work. Remember, Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. said that he talked to Tupac twice that night. Once he told it to the grand jury. So you have to understand, in him saying all of these things that he did, right? And then you rewind back to when Frank Alexander was talking about when Suge was trying to find out what was going on. What else did Frank say? Frank said, I told you Pac needed more security. That is proof what? That what Suge was saying as far as the security guards and sending more security when he told Reggie, that it's true. Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. lied about that. See, they're right in front of his face. And Frank is telling Suge right in front of Reggie's face, I told you that Pac needed more security. I told you this, blase, blah, that. And then Suge then turns to Reggie. He's like, yo, what's up, Reg? All of the questions that Frank Alexander was asking was supposed to be answered by Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. Namely, the question and why when Suge asked about, well, Michael Moore was with you earlier, what happened to him? And Frank Alexander said he was called back to Club 662.
To this day, I believe that Tupac was under the impression that I was going to be going to the MGM Grand with him. But that wasn't the case. When I went to my room, I knew in my heart I wasn't coming back because I had been instructed to go to Club 662, and that's what I did. He got a little upset because now that I think back on it, he said he's paying for this shit and that he is telling us where we're going. I remember him saying that real loud that day in the lobby, that I'm paying for you, you go where I say go. And then I said, Frank, you need to make a phone call to Reggie.
And Pac said, Michael, come over to the MGM and meet us over there.
Tupac even called Reggie and had Frank get in touch with Reggie to find out where Michael Moore was at. So the problem was festering, and I knew something wasn't right. So when I went to my hotel room, I told Tim Williams, something is not right here, Tim.
And when Frank referred to Reggie to respond, notice Reggie said nothing about calling Michael Moore back to Club 662. So when Suge Knight says, I had two of the best guys on Tupac that night, but Reggie pulled him off of him, he got that from Frank Alexander. Frank told Suge right in front of Reggie's face. Reggie the Rat Wright Jr.'s face. What happened? And Reggie didn't dispute not one word of it from what Frank Alexander said. Amazing. Amazing. Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. set up Tupac Shakur to be hurt that night. He sabotaged the security, y'all. This right here proves everything, because before, I was wondering, like, well, Suge heard, where did he hear? Where did he get that from? But Reggie pulled him off of him, because he was at the fight, But more importantly, Suge didn't know that Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. had pulled Michael Moore off of Tupac. He didn't know. He didn't know anything. You hear him. He's asking Frank, yo, Michael was with you earlier. What happened? And Frank tells him what? He was pulled off and, back to Club 662. Tim Williams says what? Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. is lying. Yeah. Tim Williams also confesses that, hey, you know what? Reggie, Michael was told not to carry his gun. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, if this doesn't shed any new light on who Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. is and what happened, nothing will. This is right in front of Suge Knight's face. And so now we have context as to why Suge said that. And Suge said, there was already a plan to do something to him. Reggie knew about that plan. He knew about that plan. Yeah. And he sabotaged Tupac's security so something actually could happen to him. I wouldn't say specifically in dealing with the Orlando Anderson situation, but it was primed for something to happen to Tupac. Ladies and gentlemen, please wake up. Please wake up. So everything that Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. had said, mind you, he's right in front of Suge Knight. Frank Alexander is right there. And Frank is basically explaining what happened and said he told him that, Pac needed more security. So Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. knew. He knew that. He knew it. And he did nothing about it, man. Reggie the Rat Wright Jr., like I said, the Tupac estate, they need to really look at this guy, man. Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. Is negligent in the death of Tupac Shakur for causation and negligence. Deliberate negligence, ladies. This proves it right here. Frank is saying that, I told him Pac needed more security. Suge is saying, I called and told Reggie, send 5 more security guards. That's 2 people saying it, man. The CEO and one of the security guards. And when they refer to Reggie, the first thing he said, well, Al Giddens was the supervisor. Absolving himself of any responsibility. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Like I said, once again, ladies and gentlemen, I need you to digest this information. Share this video, because this right here proves beyond any shadow of a doubt as to what happened. The person who was in charge of security had no explanation to anything. From his own security guard telling him Tupac needed more security, from the CEO telling him he needed more security, and from the fact of the matter that Michael Moore was pulled off of him, and Suge didn't know and admitted that he didn't know. And when they went to Reggie the Rat Wright Jr., the only thing he could say was, Al Giddens was the supervisor. As if he, as Reggie the Rat Wright Jr., wasn't responsible and wasn't calling the shots. Amazing. Your boy Delray, straight gang.